All right, folks, so welcome to today's lesson. This is a lesson that's based a lot on what you already know, okay? So whenever you see, right off the bat, whenever you see, make this highlight yellow right here and make these green. Whenever you see the word standard position, you're going to draw one of these yellow triangles as a heads up, okay? So let's say we have, and remember, this is quadrant 1, okay? This is quadrant 1, this is quadrant 2, quadrant 3, and quadrant 4, okay? So let's say I have an x-axis and a y-axis over here. -2, -3 is here. This point is in the third quadrant, which means we're going to draw this third quadrant triangle right here. Boom, boom, boom. And I'm going to put a green dot here. Okay, now the green in terms of color doesn't exactly, this dark green doesn't really match this light green, but you get my point. Okay? And I get -2, -3. Okay? So that means this is -2, -3. Okay? Now, the hardest part is to find this. The hardest part is to find this r here. I'm going to call this r. Okay, how do you find this hypotenuse? Okay, how do you find this length right here? Okay, this is Pythagorean theorem. This is something you learned in 8th grade. Okay, a squared plus b squared equals to c squared. Okay, instead of a, I'm just going to call this x. I'm going to call b y, and I'm going to call c r. Okay. All right, x. So my new formula is basically going to be the same idea. I'm going to go x squared plus y squared equals to r squared. It's the same thing as a squared plus b squared, c squared. I'm just using different variables. Okay. All right. So we're not going to pay attention to this equation anymore. Okay. So now x, I'm literally going to put in this for x. Okay. I'm going to put in this for y. And I'm going to put in this for r. Okay, r is basically going to just stay the same. Okay, so x, I'm going to have -2 squared plus y equals to r squared. Okay, -2 squared, that's -2 times -2 is 4. -3 times -3 is 9 equals to r squared. I'm going to bring this up a little bit now. Okay, and r squared is going to be 13, so I'm going to square root both sides. And there's nothing you can do after this, okay? 13 is as simplified as possible. Okay, we simplified once, so basically you get r equals to root 13. Okay, equals to root 13. You cannot simplify root 13 anymore. 13 is a prime number. Okay, 13 is a prime number. Okay, so we are going to do, we're going to fill this in now. Okay, sine equals to, so we're always going to use the green dot as our reference. Okay, we're going to use the green dot as a starting point. Okay, so remember, sine is opposite. Okay, opposite over hypotenuse. And I'm looking just at this blue box here. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, and I'm just literally going to copy this from the blue box. Okay. I just copied, what I just wrote, I literally just copied from the blue box to the right. Okay? All right. So we're going to use a green dot as our starting point. Okay? What's opposite to the green dot? Okay, the answer is -3. Okay, what's hypotenuse? The answer is √13. Okay, and remember the right angle is here. Okay, and I should draw that here, the right angle, right angle, right angle, right angle. Okay, remember hypotenuse is whatever the box is pointing to. Okay, it's whatever the box is pointing to. All right. Cosine. Okay, what is adjacent? What is adjacent to the green dot? The answer is -2. Okay, what is hypotenuse? That's √13. Again, remember hypotenuse never changes. Okay, and I need to simplify this. I did not simplify them yet, but we're just going to keep the ball rolling here. Okay, now tangent is opposite over adjacent. Opposite of the green dot is -3. Adjacent is -2. Okay. All right. Cosecant is hypotenuse over opposite, which is √13, which is hypotenuse. Opposite is going to be -3. Okay. Secant, again, hypotenuse never changes. Adjacent, however, is -2. Okay. Cotangent, it's going to be -2 is adjacent. Opposite, it's -3. Okay. Now, let's start off with what you don't have to simplify. Okay. These are good. Okay. You can't simplify that anymore. Okay. There is no root on the bottom. Okay. There is no root on the bottom. You are good. All right. These, however, you're going to need these sine and cosine. We're going to have to simplify in a little bit because there is a square root on the bottom. Okay. Now let's do some easy simplification here that has nothing to do with square roots. A negative over negative is a positive. A negative over negative is a positive. Okay. All right. Now, again, I told you we have to simplify sine and cosine because there is a square root on the bottom. So I'm going to multiply by √13 on bottom, multiply by √13 on top. We've done that before. Okay. All right. Now remember, a root, any root times itself is basically just itself. Okay, meaning √3 times √3 equals to √9, which is basically just 3. Same thing with root, you can pick any number. √8 times √8 is equal to √64, okay, which lands you back at 8 without a root. Okay, so √13, you can do √10 times √10 is basically just 10 without a root. Okay, so here on bottom, we're basically going to have 13 without a root. Okay, and on top, we're going to have -2 √13. Okay, and here we're going to have a 13 on bottom and a -3 √13 here. Okay, and then we're pretty much done. Okay, that's pretty much how you do these problems. Okay, now let's pretend this said, instead of 13 on the bottom, I'm going to make this up. Let's pretend it said 18. Okay, that means you can still simplify this further because 3 over 18 gives you 1 over 6. In this case, your answer would be 1 √13 over 6. Okay, it would be -1, sorry, √13 over 6. That's what it would be. Okay, but that's just totally hypothetical. Okay, let me bring it back to what it was earlier. So let's just recap on the main steps of this problem here, okay? So first of all, you have this point, okay? I'm starting right here on this, I'm starting right over here. You have this point, -2, 3, right here. And I got it from that. Excuse me, -2, -3, and I got it from that, okay? So I plot the point and I realize it's in the third quadrant. So that means I copy this third quadrant triangle and I place the green dot here, just like you see right here. Okay, -2 goes left, -3 goes down. Okay. Remember, -2 is the x value, so that's why it goes in the left-right direction. -3 is the y value, that's why it goes in the up-down direction. Okay, and then I go back to 8th grade and use the Pythagorean theorem. A squared plus b squared plus c squared, except right now I'm going to use x squared plus y squared is r squared, same idea. Okay, and I should say that, remember, x is your left-right value, y is your up-down value. Okay, and I would always use parentheses like you see here, always use those parentheses, okay, just to be safe and not screw up. Okay, always use those parentheses. So I put -2 here, I put -3 there, and I have r squared. -2 squared is 4, -3 squared is 9. 4 plus 9 gives you 13 equals to r squared in black. And then I do the square root of r squared to cancel out to get rid of this little 2. And I get r equals to root 13. You cannot simplify this anymore. Okay, and that's how I got to that r equals to root 13. Once you get that, it's pretty much review of what we did before. Everything over here is technically review. Okay, there's just some simplifying on top of it. Okay, but it's technically overall review on the right side. Okay, then I set up these fractions here. Okay, boom, 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 and boom. Okay, based on the blue boxes. And in this case, cosecant and secant do not need simplifying. There's no square roots in the bottom. Okay, tangent and cotangent need simplifying, and it doesn't relate to square roots. It's just a negative over negative is a positive. Okay, which lands us with this last step here. Okay, just these last two. Okay, there is a square root on the bottom, so I multiply by root 13 over root 13. Same thing here. Okay, and remember, root 13 times root 13 is basically 13 without a root. That applies to any number, whether it's root 14, 14 without a root, or root a million, and a million without a root. It's the same thing. Okay, and the reason I chose the red 13s is because this is root 13 on the bottom. If this said root 20, then this would be root 20, root 20. Okay, folks, I want you guys to go ahead and do, okay, these green problems right over here. Boom. Okay, go ahead now. Actually, I want you to do this one. Yeah, I want you to do these three right here. Okay, so I might not have a chance to make a PDF, so just, once you're done watching this video, you can rewind to, almost the end and just look at these problems here. Okay, all right, folks, thanks for tuning in. All right, hope that makes sense.